everybody, it's Gary back at the shop. Again, we're back working on the Valiant. This time we're going to have a look at the brakes and going to design the braking system for it. I have bare calipers and rotors and everything on it, and I have a bare master cylinder with a 1-inch piston in it. All of that's new to the car, so we got to make sure that we have the right pedals and the right ratios and the right pressures and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'll show you a little bit of easy math on how to figure that out for yourself, so that when you're building a brake system like this from scratch, you'll be able to know for sure that when you're all said and done, you're going to have the amount of brake pressure you need. You'll know how much pedal pressure it's going to take to achieve that, and all of that good stuff. So you won't be getting in the car for the first time and your foot goes 6 inches and the car's still rolling. That's never a good feeling. So we're going to go into a little bit of math here and just show you the principles behind it and see what happens. Okay, I hope you can see this. I have a really crudely drawn brake pedal here on the whiteboard, and just kind of go through what we need to do to understand how our system is going to work. I'm just going to move you over a little bit here. So there are 3 points on this brake pedal that are important in determining our calculations. The first one is the pivot point up here. This is where the brake pedal pivots. It's where it's mounted in the car. Then the second one is this point right here, and this is the push rod that goes out here to the master cylinder and to the piston inside the master cylinder that is going to supply the pressure to the calipers. Okay, and this rod length is important, but we'll cover that in another video. And then the other thing that's important is the point of force here. So we're just going to call that point of force. And that's obviously the pivot. And this is the push rod. So what we do, first of all, is make 2 measurements. We want to measure the distance between the center of this pivot point and the center of the push rod point. And in my car, with the brake pedal that I intend to use, that distance is 1.5 inches. Okay, then the next thing that we want to do is we want to measure the distance between the center of the pivot point and the point of force here. And so in my car, that distance is 11 inches. So from that we can calculate the pedal ratio of what we've got here. How much ratio do we have on this pedal? Now, generally speaking, in a power brake car, you'd like this ratio to be approximately 4:1. In a manual brake car like I have, you'd like it to be higher, like at least 6:1, 7:1 is good, even 8:1 sometimes is fine. The more ratio you have here, the less force that's required here. However, also the more ratio you have here, the less distance this pedal can move. So if you've got limiting factors there, and you need to push this pedal X amount of distance, you've got to make sure that you've got all your points correct. But let's just talk about this one for now. So we've got 11 inches from the pivot point to the point of force, and we have 1.5 inches from the pivot to the push rod. So if we just do some quick math, and we just say that's 11 divided by 1.5, that equals 7.3 approximately. So our ratio, our pedal ratio in this case, is 7.3 to 1. Okay? So now we kind of know, and for a manual car, 7.3, that's pretty good. Okay? Now, we have to, eventually, we want to have like 7, 8, 900 PSI at the calipers in the car. So we're going to want to determine how much pressure are we going to be able to make. And so to do that, we need some more information. First thing we need to know is what is the diameter of the piston inside the master cylinder. And in my car, it is 1 inch. Okay, so we calculate the area of that 1 inch bore, and the area of a 1 inch bore is pretty easy to calculate. It's a pi r squared, so it's 3.14 times 0.5 squared. So 0.5 is the radius of 1, 3.14 times 0.5 squared, and that equals 0.785, or we can call it 0.79, round up, that's good. So we've got about 0.79 of a square inch of piston area on the bore of the master cylinder. Okay, so that's all well and good. Now, remember I said we wanted to have like 6, 7, 8, 900 pounds of PSI of fluid at the caliper to make sure that the brakes are going to work correctly. How do we calculate how much pressure we're going to actually have? Well, the first thing we have to decide is how much pressure are we going to apply to the point of force. Now, I'm a 200-pound guy, so applying 100 pounds to that is easy. But, you know, and 100 pounds is a good round measure. Like even smaller stature people and ladies and stuff can pretty easily apply 100 pounds of force to a brake pedal. So let's just say we're going to apply 100 pounds of force to the brake pedal. Okay, so now how do we figure out what the PSI is over here? Well, if we know that we're putting 100 pounds of force into this, and we know that the pedal ratio is 7.3, so we go 100 times 7.3 equals 730. Now, how does that translate into PSI? Well, we know the area of the piston. So we take 730 and we divide that by 0.79 and we get 924 PSI. So this will be perfect. I've got 900 PSI at the calipers, so everything is good here. So there's other stuff that we have to consider and things that you have to be careful about, especially when you're adjusting the length of this push rod and so on. And we'll cover that in another video. But I just kind of wanted to give you the basics on how to set this up and how to do the quick and easy math on, you know, are you in the ballpark or not, right? If this hole was down here, we wouldn't be in the ballpark, you know, or if this hole was way up close to here, it wouldn't work either. So, you know, this is the kind of stuff that you've got to know ahead of time that what you're going to do is going to work, so that when you get on that brake pedal, things actually slow down. So we'll go back out to the car and I'll show you some stuff on the master cylinder and show you how I'm going to put this together. Okay, so just kind of give you the rundown of the way I'm planning to do this. Here's my master cylinder, and this part of this device here, there's a bolt goes through here, it attaches this to the brake pedal, and then this is going to be my adjustment. Now obviously I'm going to have to cut the head off this bolt and round it over, because eventually that's going to go up inside the master cylinder, up in there, and I need to get that the correct length, approximately anyway. I've got about an inch or so of adjustability here, so there's plenty of adjustment in it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to need a longer bolt or a shorter bolt, so I've got both. The plan will be determine the length required and then cut the head off, put it in the lathe, round it over, kind of make a ball nose on it, and make it nice and smooth, and then get it installed. So just to kind of give you an idea of what the plan is, this is kind of what you got to do when you're making everything yourself from scratch. So I'll bring you back when I get the master cylinder installed in the car. Hey everybody, back working on the Valiant, and I'm going to make a couple of changes that I hadn't originally anticipated, but I'll kind of take you inside the car and show you what I got going on. I have hung the brake pedal and I've manufactured the new push rod to go into the new master cylinder, and got all that done. Pedal height looks good, but the pedal placement isn't as good as I would like it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So that's kind of what we've got, and I mean, it's a brake pedal and all that stuff, but this brake pedal was meant for a manual brake car with a clutch, so it had a manual transmission, and so the clutch pedal mounted right here, and when you're drag racing, you generally left foot brake. That's kind of the way I learned, and so what I would like to do to keep my feet a little further apart is I'd like to move this pedal over here a couple of inches, and there's various ways to do that, and I know I could bend this, or I could make a new bracket or whatever. But I decided, like, what if I got a brake pedal that came from a car that had an automatic transmission from the factory? And so I went on eBay and I was able to find one, and it's a little worse for wear, but there it is. And as you can see, it moves the pedal over a fair bit, and I think it's going to be about the same length. Yeah, so that's, the ratio's good, all of that stuff. Sorry, the ratio's good, all of that stuff is going to be fine. But when I get this thing up in place, it's going to go like in here. It's going to basically move my pedal over that couple of inches. So I'm going to clean this thing all up. I'm going to soak it overnight or for 24 hours in some rust remover and like evapor rust or something along those lines, and I think I'm out of it, so I've got to go get some. And this pad that's on this pedal is worn out, but I was lucky enough to find a new one, so I've got a new pedal pad coming for it. So yeah, I mean, this is out of a 64 A body with an automatic transmission, and that one there is the 67 with a standard transmission and manual brakes. I don't know if this car, this automatic car, if it had power brakes or manual brakes. Judging by the placement of the push rod, I would assume it had manual brakes, because that's the kind of pedal ratios that you normally would see with manual brakes. But as you can tell, she's a little rusty and crusty, and needs a good cleaning up. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to swap out that pedal for this one, and we'll see how this thing cleans up. I'll bring you back. Okay, well, we have the rusted brake pedal out of the evapor rust, and I've given it a quick blast in the blast cabinet just to clean the last of the residue off. But that evapor rust does a pretty good job. Left it overnight, and you can see that's the color of the evapor rust, that all the rust laying in the bottom there, and you can reuse that. I'm gonna pour the majority of the clean stuff that I can get out of there back into the can, and I'll use it again. So now we're just making sure that the pedals are going to fit the same, and it looks like they are. This dimension where it mounts in the hanger is the same on both of them. They both use the same diameter pin that they pivot on, and most importantly, they both have the same ratio from the pivot to the push rod for the master cylinder. So all of the math that I worked out for this pedal will follow, because this pedal is exactly the same way. So that's all going to work, and the pedal is going to move over, you know, a fair bit. So, you know, I'll have the pedal moved over kind of more to where I want it, and give me a little bit more room in the car for the throttle pedal and stuff. So I've got a new pad coming for this, but I think I'm going to give it a shot of paint first and get it cleaned up, and then I'll hang it in the car, and when the new pad comes in, I'll put that on, and that part of the brakes will be done. Hey everybody, I thought I'd give you a quick look at some of the tools I use to do tubing, cutting it, bending it, and then to do the inverted flares that you need on brake lines and stuff. And I don't have anything real special, but I just figured I'd go over the bench here and show you a few things. So this tool is a tubing straightener, and it works really good, and I'll show you how it works in a minute. I'll run some tube through it. This is the tool that I use to do the inverted flares. The tubing goes in these dies, and it's a really easy tool to use. I like it. It does a nice job. Somewhere laying on this messy bench, I've got an example that I can show you. But does a really good job, and you know, and then tubing cutters. You know, just your basic stuff. Like for the NICOP stuff, I like this little tubing cutter here, and plus it's handy one to use when you need to get in tight spaces and stuff. It works really good. This one is, I think, from Rigid, and then I've got this one as well, which is another larger Rigid cutter, more used for larger tubes and stuff. I'll use this on the fuel, the hard lines and stuff like that. And then once the tube is cut and you get an opening like that, sometimes the ends tend to kind of bend over, and so I'll use a deburring tool like this Noga piece here, and just stick it in the end of the tube and spin it around. And then to bend the tubes, walk over here and I'll show you. So here's a piece of the brake line. This is the rear brake line. Hopefully it shows up on camera. This is the rear brake line that I've got bent to fit in the chassis of the car. This part right here will go up to above the rear axle, and this will go into a bulkhead fitting, and then from there a hose will feed the rear axle, and then these are the bends that were required to kind of make it fit down to the chassis and then run it along the frame rail. But you can see what a nice job that tubing straightener does. And then to make those bends, I use this Rigid 3/16 tubing bender. It's again really easy to use. It's marked well. It's a very clear and easy to use tool. It helps you figure out where on the tube your bend has to be when you want it to start and stop in a specific point and stuff like that. And I'm fortunate enough to have my buddy Rick from a couple of doors down here give me some pointers on this. He's a pro at this. They build all kinds of intricate plumbed systems for the nuclear industry, and so he bends like stainless with one like this, and so he's really good at being precise. So he's given me some pointers and tips, and he actually gave me a hand laying this out and deciding how that was going to get laid in the car. So I just figured I'd show you some of that stuff, and just for giggles here, I'll stick the camera up on the tripod, and I'll just run a little piece of tubing through that straightener there just so you can see kind of how that works. Pretty straightforward as well, that wasn't good. Okay, so after we drop the camera on the floor, we'll try this again. The tubing just simply goes in the bender like so. Hopefully you can see that on there. And then you just push it through the rollers, and the rollers spit it out fairly straight. And then what I like to do is I'll run it through and I'll kind of rotate it around a few times just to get the bends all out in every direction, like that. And there you go, nice straight piece of tubing. There's other ways to do it, and you know, this just happens to give a real nice result, and I like stuff to be really flat, so thought you'd like to see it. Okay, so when the camera hit the floor, apparently something happened to the audio. Anyway, I'm just taking you under the car here and just kind of give you an idea what we got going on. There's the brake line mocked up in place. I'm going to weld a plate onto the sway bar hanger there, put a bulkhead fitting in that, and then from the other side of the bulkhead fitting, there'll be a braided steel line that comes down and attaches to a bracket with a T-fitting that's going to get mounted to a bracket that I have to make that'll go right on the top of the differential. And then out of the T-fitting, there'll be hard lines out to another fitting on each side, and then from there there'll be AN lines to the calipers. And so here's just kind of the line mocked up in place. Haven't got any clamps on it yet. It's just kind of sitting there. I think I've got it held in place with a clamp or something just for the video. But you can see there's a couple of 45-degree bends, and then there's 2 or 3 90-degree bends as we get around this frame rail, and then back closer to the frame rail that goes down the outside of the car where the rocker panel is. And then that basically runs all the way to the front of the car. And I'm going to use some nice clamps that are going to get riveted onto that frame rail. But yeah, it's just basically running straight up front. Once I get it all located and in place, then I'm going to make the final bends, and I'm going to run that up to the proportioning valve. Right there is where that's going to connect. And yeah, that'll be that. So just kind of give you a quick idea of what we got going on there, and kind of what the plan of attack is. Got to get everything clamped down in place, and then I can finish bending up the front end of it. Okay, still having audio problems, so I'm doing a voiceover here. I wanted to show you kind of how I make a nice precise round hole in a cardboard template. I'm going to make a bracket to mount that T fitting on the back of the rear axle, and I've just got a random piece of cardboard here. It's like poster board paper, and I want to make a very nice precise round hole that's going to fit nicely over the stud on the 9-inch Ford rear end. So what I do is I take a thick stamped steel washer, and on a stamped washer, one of the inside edges usually is sharp and the other one's rounded over in the direction that it was stamped. So I put the sharp side towards the paper, and then I'll just tape that washer in place on the paper. And it doesn't matter exactly where I put it, because I haven't made the outside shape of the bracket yet, but the hole is going to help me locate it. And then I just take a little ball peen hammer, take the ball end of it, and I just tap around the inner diameter of that washer, and that little sharp edge on the washer, it cuts the paper really nicely, and it makes a really nice precise round hole that I can then use to locate my bracket on the rear end, and I can then trim the outside of it to whatever shape I want the bracket to be. But I just wanted to show you a quick and easy way to get a really nice round hole in a template that you want to use to make a bracket or something like that. So I just, kind of an old guy trick, as my son would say. And sometimes these things, I think everybody knows them, but apparently they don't. So there you go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Kind of behind on videos, been really busy with my day job, and haven't had much chance to work on anything back here. But I did want to show you, I've made a little bit of progress on the brake system, and just kind of bring you up to speed a little bit on that, and then we'll see what's next. So let's walk over to the car here, and I'll just kind of show you what I got going on. So here's some hardware, just got it cleaned up out of the blaster. This is the pivot bolt that's going to hold the brake pedal in. And then in the car, I think I mentioned I changed the brake pedal from the old manual or the 4-speed style pedal with the narrow cover to a automatic style pedal. And so we got that all in and done, and we just got to put the nuts on the hardware and stuff and get that finished up. And there's a kind of a shot of how it's all going into the master cylinder. Hopefully you can see that. And then we've been running around the brake line to the rear. I haven't fastened it in place yet. I'm waiting on some rivets for that, but I've got the master cylinder in place, obviously, and the line lock is mounted as well. And down here you can see this is the hard line that's going to come up and go to the proportioning valve. So I want to kind of fasten that in place so I can terminate both ends and stuff, and I want to take the line out of the car to make the flares and stuff. So it's all part of the process. And then inside the car, I've been working on a plate that goes kind of up there. Hopefully you can see it. It's kind of up there, and that's going to be where the hard line goes. Let's see if I can set this down and kind of show you what's going on. This is probably going to fall off of here, but so this hard line, it's going to go up in here like this, and it's basically going to go up there like that, and then this will all get fastened down. So that's kind of what we got going on. And then I made a bracket to mount the T-fitting on the rear axle. Can't remember where I put it, but I think it's over here. Yeah, so this is the bracket. It's going to mount the T-fitting in the rear axle. So it's going to go on the rear axle this way. This hangs out over the top of the rear axle. The T-fitting will actually fit underneath it like that. So when it goes on the car, it'll look kind of like that. So not much progress, but it is what it is. And back at it today. So make a little more progress every day, and we'll get her done. So I'll bring you back when I got something else to share. Thanks for watching. Okay, well, I figured I'd give you a quick shot of the brake plumbing and how that went. You can see the master cylinder up there comes out of the master cylinder, and the rear line goes into the proportioning valve, and then that goes to the back of the car. The front out of the master cylinder goes into the line lock, and then that teed off into the front left and right brakes. And there, I didn't want to plumb them over top of the engine on the firewall, it would have been much easier to do, but instead I ran them around the front of the frame and up each side and through the fender wells, and give you an idea what that looks like through here. So that's where the plumbing comes through. There's a rubber grommet on there, comes down into the fitting, and then we've got the braided steel to the calipers. And then underneath, just a line that's plumbed all the way to the back of the car. About every 16 inches or so, we put a fastener on it. It goes up into the back. Let me move the light here, and you can see the line's routed up there, and it goes up to that fitting up there, and then a braided line down to the axle, and then tubes on each side of the axle. And I'll go around the back and show you that. And from that bulkhead fitting, obviously we've got the flexible line down to the axle so the axle can move. And that's my little bracket and T-fitting that I made up right there. And the lines come out of that and come around, and then they go into these junctions right here where it goes hard line to 3AN, and then 3AN to banjo and out to the caliper. And same thing on the other side, same kind of deal. So that's it. The brakes are plumbed. I've ordered some speed bleeders, just waiting for the speed bleeders to show up, and I'll be ready to bleed the brakes, and we'll actually have brakes on this puppy. So we'll bring you back when that happens.